Well, I'm here to give everybody a warm welcome to pdq.com. This is our lovely facility, and we're so happy that everyone is able to join us for this amazing Wasatch Business Series event, and we're happy to have Wasatch IT on board to share their wealth of knowledge with you as well. I'll give you a little bit of information about PDQ because people are like, what's PDQ and where'd you guys come from all of a sudden? Well, PDQ, we've been here for quite some time. This is actually, because I love that you guys are all small business, a lot of people coming from small businesses. And PDQ is actually a startup company right out of West Jordan, Utah. The founders went to West Jordan High, believe it or not. And two identical twin brothers, Sean Anderson and Shane Carillion, and then their best friend Adam started this company. And what we do is we create software for IT administrators, right? So IT is king around here and anything in that vicinity, which is why we're so happy to have Wasatch IT on board as well. We work with MSPs like them as, in what we do as well. So we create software, like I said, for IT administrators, different solutions. We have our flagship product, which is PDQ Deploy, which is a patch management solution, and we have inventory. And we recently acquired two small companies since October, Simple MDM and Smart Deploy. So our two prior products were for Windows specifically, and now we have the ability with our new product lines to also support Mac products, so device management in short. We've been around since 2012, so not long, and we took occupancy in this amazing building in May of last year. So we had a grand opening in October of last year. So that's just a little bit about pdq.com, and we love that you're here in our space. I am the business development manager, and I do community engagement as well, which is how I ended up being able to invite you into our space. I work with Gary and the Salt Lake Chamber, South Salt Lake Chamber. And lots of other community groups as well. So anyways, I wanted to give you a grand welcome into our space. And at the end of this, I have offered to take anybody on a tour that would like to see our amazing space. We have a whiskey lounge upstairs. That's a real thing. We do. We have a whiskey lounge. And it's exactly like you could possibly imagine, right? What's a whiskey lounge doing in South Salt Lake? Well, I'll show you when this is over. So we also have, like behind those doors, we have a professional grade webcast studio. We do a live weekly webcast every week about our product and show you how to utilize the product for all of our customers. And so you can see that too. It's like our own like news studio. We can do it all. So we love technology in general. And so again, welcome to our space. And now I'm going to have Gary Birdsall, who most of you guys probably know. He is the South Salt Lake Chamber president. Did I say that right, Gary? All right. And then John Perry, did I say that right, John? Utah Independent Business Coalition, and they will be your guide through the rest of the event. It is. It is every Thursday, and we start our pre-show at 9:30. Pre-show is just them on there just goofing around. AM. Every Thursday. And if you go to pdq.com, you'll just see a live link. And anyways, it's kind of cool. It's kind of fun if you want to see like how hokey we are, and the pre-show is the thing to watch. And then to learn more about our product and how to utilize it in your own environment, you would continue watching the rest. So anyways, welcome everybody. I love that you're here in our space.
Gary? Hi all. Boy, these lights are bright. Unbelievable. Gary Birdsall, South Salt Lake Chamber. I've got some chamber folks here that know me. Can't believe it, but next month, 9 years with the South Salt Lake Chamber. So there must be something, which there is, good and fun happening in the city, because I keep hanging around. And doing these type of things, bringing people together is unbelievable. The Wasatch Business Series is, we can talk about that in a minute, but a lot of people in this room helped create that about three plus years ago, and it's been fun. So I'd like John to tell you about himself and the UIBC.
Hi, I'm John Perry. So I'm a longtime board member for Utah Independent Business Coalition, probably at least 9-10 years at this point, past president of UIBC. And then in my vocational life, I'm a business and estate planning attorney, and then I specialize in business transition and exit planning. But we're here today to welcome you to this great event from the Wasatch Business Series that UIBC partners with in conjunction today with the South Salt Lake Chamber. So if you're not familiar with UIBC, Utah Independent Business Coalition, we are an advocacy, business roundtable, education, and social connection organization for small, local, independent business owners. Used to go under the name of Vest Pocket Business Coalition. Organization's been in existence for over 20 years. I think we were founded in 1999, and it's just a great place for business owners to interact, to learn, and then to also get support. We were active with providing updates this legislative session and letting everybody know what's going on up at the Hill and how it affects small businesses. So anyway, we just wanted to make a mention of that. And so, Gary, do you want to talk just a little bit more about the Wasatch Business Series?
I've got some colleagues here from the Wasatch Business Series. Who can remember when we started this thing? Aren't we 3 years? Is it 3? Okay. We started with maybe 5 or 6 member organizations. We figured that these happen every 60 days. Obviously, nothing happened last year. How many have been celebrating 2 years of coronavirus and earthquake this month? Unbelievable. Isn't it great to be with people face to face? Yeah, yay, whomever said that. Here are the organizations that belong to the Wasatch Business Series. And we did come together to get all of our organizations together every 60 days. And it's amazing to see somebody from Sugar House or Murray or Holiday know somebody in the South Salt Lake Chamber and vice versa. It expands the bandwidth of business owners to meet more people. And the next one will be in April. And if I'm not, I won't give too many details, but I might be wrong because I think it's late April, and Mill Creek is going to be in charge of that one. And evidently, there's a new brewery in the area. By the way, 4 breweries, 3 distilleries in the city of South Salt Lake. And one of those distilleries, we started last month with our every month business happy hour. And we invite a local business in there, that type of thing. It's at Din and Brick Distillery this Thursday at 4:30. You do need to register. DABC will clamp down hard on distilleries, especially if you don't treat it as a private event. So if you have any interest in that, let me know after. So the UIBC, us, the South Salt Lake Chamber, the Utah, and if I mention the organization, when I mention that, raise your hand because I know some of you are here. The Utah LGBTQ Chamber. Liz is here. The Holiday Chamber, I know, there we go. Sugar House Chamber. The Mill Creek Business Council. They don't have a chamber, they have a business council, but they're part of the series, Wasatch Business Series. The Murray Chamber. The Utah Black Chamber. James Jackson III is recovering from Black History Month. I don't think he slept in 30 days. Dealing with everything fun stuff that happened that month. And the Cottonwood Heights Business Association, again, no chamber, but they have people who work with the businesses and they're part of our group. So I'm going to, was Robert able to make it with Pat's Barbecue? Robert Novelli bought from Pat's Barbecue, I'm gonna get out of here, Pat's Barbecue 3 years ago. So Robert Novelli and a partner do own Pat's. And if you've never been, you can walk there, it's 2 blocks away on Commonwealth. And they opened a new one at the old, remodeled the old Village Inn on State Street. So I wanted to make sure I gave credit to Robert and his team. So I think either you are now going to talk about and PDQ, one thing about PDQ.com. Their name is PDQ.com, not PDQ. I'm going to get on that next webcast. That sounds like fun. They are an executive circle level member of the South Salt Lake Chamber, which obviously delights us. Great partnership, and it's just ramping up even more. So with that, I'm done.
Okay. All right, thank you, Gary. So I'm going to introduce our first speaker today, Doug Burton. Doug is the owner of Saltworks Digital, and he is also the current president of Utah Independent Business Coalition. Doug's got more than 2 decades of experience in developing and managing websites and digital platforms. He's developed web and interactive content for a number of both big and small companies. Some of the bigger ones have included Quaker Oatmeal, Kroger, Dove Soap, Huggies Diapers, Clorox, and as well as for several hundreds other small businesses and startups, including my own office a few years ago. So I'm a satisfied customer and heartily recommend Doug for everything he does. And he's just generally one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. So he really is. So without further ado, Doug, take it away.
Okay, thank you everybody and welcome. So quick show of hands here. I imagine most of you do, but who has a website that you manage or that your organization has, or a personal website? So hold your hands up if you have a website. Okay. Now, for the people who held your hand up, how many have someone who manages it for you? A company that, all right, yeah, okay, fair enough, cool. How many manage it yourself? A lot. Okay, so let me count. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The majority, like 75% of you, manage it yourself. And let me guess, that's probably your favorite thing to do. This is the reason why you got into business, right? And the business that you're in is to manage your own website, right? That's exactly what you wanted to do. Oh, okay, cool. So if that's not the case, you're not alone, right? Because a lot of people, it's like me with accounting. I hate managing accounting. That's why I have somebody else do it for me. I find there's 2 or 3 schools of thought for people who manage websites themselves when it comes to cybersecurity. There's a couple of attitudes that I notice over and over again, and I've been in this group. 20 years ago when I was first getting out of sort of advertising and marketing and starting in IT, starting with building websites and with marketing, I was in this group. So this is the group which is, I know there's a big risk, but I'm going to chance it, right, when it comes to cybersecurity. I think I'll be okay. It's this approach, right? You're just going to leave it to chance, right? That's a risky approach, but people have been known to do that. Then there's this approach, which is, I don't think it can happen to me, right? I think most cyber attacks happen to big businesses. I don't need to worry about it because it's not going to happen to me. I'm a little guy. My website just started. I'm just on the map. And I don't need to worry about it. But the fact is, 70% of cyber attacks target small businesses. So we're going to talk today about website security for small business. Ben Clapp, our other speaker, our headliner, is going to speak about cybersecurity in general. I'm going to focus sort of micro-focused on websites because I think it is your most important digital touch point. So I want you to vote on this. How often do you think a cyber attack is attempted on the average small business website? So do you think who thinks it's 5 to 10 times a year that a cyber attack is attempted? Who thinks it's 5 to 10 times a month? Okay, 5 to 10 times a week? And more. So the actual answer is between 10 and 100 times a day your website is, someone's trying to break into your website and they're hammering your login page over and over and over again, trying to guess your password and your username and your password. Now, it's not somebody, a hacker there sitting there typing everything in manually. They're using server farms and bots and automated tools to go through a list of known, easy passwords. And if your website is, like your website, Jason, is woodlandadvisors.co, right? So they're going to use Woodland Advisors as the username. They're going to try Woodland. They're going to try Advisors. All the obvious things, Woodland admin. If they get your username, if they can guess your username, or it's very, very easy, you're giving them sort of 1/2 of the password already. So one of the things you want to make sure that you do with your website is make sure your username is also fairly complex. I don't think you need to go as far as making it a series of random numbers and letters, but at least make it something other than admin, right? Because that's the first thing that they try. So here are the most common website cyber threats. Let's talk about what things you need to be kind of have on your radar and know about. Some of these are more focused on medium-sized businesses, but this one is one that happens a lot to small businesses. And the thing I was talking about hackers trying to just continually break into your website through the admin panel, that's called a brute force attack. So they'll set up server farms and they'll just try to crack your password, just trying it all day long with thousands and tens of thousands of combinations. A DDoS attack, I won't get into what DDoS stands for. Does anybody know, by the way? Distributed denial of service attack. That's right. You won't remember that, right? I can barely remember it myself. All right. So that's an attempt by attackers to flood your website with fake traffic. You don't see that a lot with small companies, but as your brand becomes more popular and people know about your brand, you'll start to see that more and more. Malware, so attackers can get access, if they get access to your website, and they'll get in and damage your systems. And even worse, they will create fake pages to skim data from visitors to your website. So this is a way that phishing is integrated with your website. So very, very important that you don't get your website compromised. What's the cost of an attack on a small business website? Well, if you ask Hiscox's Cyber Readiness Report, if you look at that, for 2021, they estimated the cost for the average small business to be $25,000, just over $25,000. According to another report, Kaspersky IT, $105,000. So that's the cost of restoring your site, downtime, lost business. So what's the average downtime if a website gets attacked? If you have a recent backup of your site, a recent restore point, you might be back up within a day or a few hours. If not, I've seen it take a few weeks if someone's website has to be rebuilt. The average amount of downtime is 7.5 days, by the way, for small businesses. This is another one that a lot of people don't know about, is that if your website gets compromised in a cyber attack, Google actually penalizes you with lower search rankings. Google tries to deliver the best quality websites for people when they search for something, and so if your website has malicious code on it, they don't want people going to it, and that makes a lot of sense. That's actually a very good thing that Google does. But you think, okay, if my website gets compromised, if I just have somebody clean it up, get the website back online, I'll be back to normal, right, within a few days. Well, actually, 45% of business owners with hacked sites said their traffic never returned to its pre-hacking levels, even after cleaning it. And their search rankings also didn't return to what they were. You've got the factor of lost trust and reputation, something that you need to be concerned about. 1 in 4 people say that they stopped doing business with a company that was reported being hacked. And if your credit card was stolen from a website or from a company, would you continue to do business with them? You might, if it's something that's an essential service like Amazon, right? But it's something that people are kind of addicted to. But if it's a small business, you can't afford to take that risk that they would stop doing business with you. And then liability is the other one. So liability, what is the cost of that? 9 in 10 people agree that companies are financially liable to their customers after a data breach. So all of this is super scary, but what I want to say is there is good news. This is like, okay, fire hose of information. I know it's a threat. What do I do about it? The good news is I'm going to tell you how you can make your website 1,000 times more secure. And you can actually do this if you're managing your site on your own. A lot of this you can do on your own. You don't necessarily have to hire a firm to help you manage this. It's a little scary, but you can navigate it. And we're going to give you 8 tips that will essentially walk you through it. Okay, so we ready for the 8? First one is observe good password hygiene. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, that means using strong passwords. And we've heard this before. Years ago you could use anything, all lowercase, the word Mustang as a password. Now you've got to have a uppercase letter, a hieroglyph. You've got to have all these special characters, all of that. So here is sort of a short list of the most hacked passwords. Does anybody here, and don't be embarrassed, raise your hand if you've ever used any password that had any of these words or any combination of these words in them. I actually had a client that used, and we of course changed it when they came on board with this, but they used "let me in 3" as their password, right? It's one of the most hacked passwords, and of course all the numbers they're gonna determine that. So what are other easily hacked passwords? You might think a phrase like the name of your favorite movie or something like that would be a good option. Here are some passwords that people have used that thinking it was a strong password that actually wasn't. This is one that I kind of like. You can relate to that. Of course, this one is, for a long time. Here's one I like. For Home Alone fans, and this is probably my favorite. Okay, so strong password. You know what a strong password is? It looks like this, right? And everybody hates these passwords. You hate typing them in. If you ever had to type this in manually, especially looking at your phone and then typing it, right? It's murder. So what do? We use a password manager. That's how we get around that. This is what we do. We use LastPass. I know a lot of people like 1Password. Some people use Keeper. There's a lot of good password vaults out there and password managers. But that's essential to keeping your passwords protected, in our opinion. And I don't know, how many know how a password manager works? Raise your hand if you do. Okay. So for those of you who didn't raise your hand, basically it's a place where you store all of your passwords. It's multi-factor authenticated, secure, so that if you go to log into it, what you want to have is a second factor so that if you log in, you have to essentially get a notification on your phone, you have to put the code in, and then you can gain access to your password manager. So it's like your bank in a way. Okay, never reuse passwords or use passwords for more than one account. That's tempting because how many accounts do we have? 300, 500? How many software as a service do we have? Don't enter passwords on sites that aren't encrypted. We're going to talk a little bit later about how do we know what that means, what is encrypted. This is a big one, and I find this to be a way that a lot of people get hacked. Never log in from somebody else's device, even if it's your cousin or your brother or your daughter or whatever it is. You don't know what networks that their computer is connected to, and in the past, you don't know what malicious code they may have on their computer. So it's just a really bad idea. Never email passwords. Never log into accounts over a public Wi-Fi connection that you don't know is secure. So I'm logged into the pdq.com guest user here, but I'm not logging into any of my passwords from here, even though I'm 99.99% sure. She'll say 100% sure, right? It's secure, but for best practice, I'm not going to do any banking while I'm here over my connection. And if I would tether to my phone. I would turn off my Wi-Fi on my phone, and I would tether to this so that I'm using an actual phone connection, not public Wi-Fi. And then use two-factor, multi-factor authentication whenever possible. Yes, please.
Like a password manager that's part of Google Chrome, is that secure?
Or like keychain. Yeah, on Mac. I don't think it's as secure as one of these password managers, right? Because if somebody gets access to your device, then essentially they have access to your passwords, right? So you actually kind of, if they had your password to get into your device, so for someone to get into my LastPass, they would have to get access to my device, somehow hack that, somehow get my username and password for LastPass, and have my phone for the multi-factor. So it's a lot more secure. Yeah, yeah. So I'm kind of against things being dependent upon that device. Plus, if you ever lost that device, then what? You know, if you misplaced it or whatever, or say the drive just goes out on it. You know. Yeah, yeah. You bet. I think it's okay, and I think I'll let Ben address this a little bit more because I would use it to search Google, just surf the web, but I'm not going to log into any accounts over public Wi-Fi myself. Now, Ben may have some other ideas. There, you know, you could use what's called a VPN, a virtual private network, to access the Wi-Fi. But I personally don't like to do that. I personally just save my logging into things for when I'm at a secure connection. Okay, we'll have a little Q&A at the end too. So the other thing is to be cautious about who has access to your login credentials to your website. This guy is Kevin Mitnick, and he actually is a former hacker who served some prison time in the late 90s for hacking several large companies. And now he's a security consultant making a whole lot of money. And he's a public speaker and author. And he said if an attacker wants to break into a system, the most effective approach is to try to exploit the weakest link, not operating systems, firewalls, or encryption algorithms, but people. And that's true. People, we are the weakest link when it comes to passwords. So if you're going to be cautious about who has access, that means on your like if you have a WordPress site, you're going to want to regularly clean up and revisit admin accounts, old accounts, get rid of those. If you have an employee or say you have a manager of one of your stores and they have an admin account for your WordPress site and they leave, you want to make sure that you immediately disable that, not because they would necessarily do anything to mess with your site, but if their email address becomes abandoned, then it could get hacked and it just becomes a vulnerability. So people don't always maintain their Gmail addresses or Yahoo addresses or whatever. So if that's the email address associated with an admin account in your WordPress or any website for that matter, it could be compromised that way. You want to make sure anybody who has access to your website abides by your company's cybersecurity policy, which leads me to tip 3, which is have a company cybersecurity policy. Now, raise your hand if you do have one. I don't think, okay, a couple people do, right? Four people do. I have one. I have to have one because we're a digital marketing agency, but a lot of companies don't. And it doesn't have to be an extensive cybersecurity policy, but one page, right? Just basics. But you need to have emotional and mental buy-in by your employees that they are part of the solution in helping protect the whole company's IT infrastructure. Okay, tip 3. Anybody know what this is? Is this now very just cryptic? All right, so SSL HTTPS. Basically, what is this? Well, you've probably been to some websites that you see it says not secure or it won't have a little lock symbol on it. You want to make sure your website has the little lock symbol, and then importantly, it has HTTPS. S stands for secure. This is a signal that you have a properly configured encrypted website. Okay, so make sure you have an valid SSL certificate. Your website hosting company or whoever's managing your website will know all of this. You can call them and say, I need to make sure I have this. And just so you know, an SSL certificate is a digital certificate that authenticates a website's identity and enables an encrypted connection. They actually issue a little digital certificate, and that's what you're looking at. So if you ever come across a site and you see that it doesn't have that, and it says not secure, by all means, don't put your credit card information in there. Don't do business with that company. is my advice. I think it's a trust signal. So if you don't have a secure site, it's sort of a signal to other companies that you're not, number one, keeping up with your IT, and you just don't know what's going on, right? You don't know if the site's compromised. So any questions on SSL and HTTPS before I go on? Okay, so now those are the tips that apply to everybody. Now there's a few tips that only apply to people that have what we call open source CMS sites. So what type of website do you have? A content management system is an application on your website that allows multiple contributors to create, edit, and publish content on your website. So how many of you have what's called a hosted CMS? It's one of these on the left-hand side. Raise your hand if your website is either Squarespace, Wix, Blogger, any of these. I think, Jason, yours is Squarespace, right? Yeah, you're on WordPress, yeah. Most people have WordPress sites, or there's a few with Joomla and Drupal. I think Babs, yours used to be Joomla, yeah. It's not surprising, 65% of websites are WordPress sites, 65% with an identifiable CMS. So these next tips really relate to anybody with a WordPress site. You're going to definitely want to make sure you are paying attention to these. Choose a good hosting provider. This is really, really important. So who can name a few hosting providers? Just shout some out. Just what hosting providers can you name? Xmission? Google, yeah. Bluehost. Any others? GoDaddy? Yeah, that's actually one. Yes, that is. So if you're paying less than $15 a month for hosting, it's probably not what I would call enterprise level hosting company. It's going to be a hosting, not a business level hosting plan, essentially. You want to make sure that your hosting company provides automatic daily backups of your website. So if something does happen and your site does get attacked and you have to restore to a previous version of your website, that can easily be done. And then you want to look for a hosting company with exceptional customer support for non-techies. How do you do that, right? Well, I've got a list of hosting companies I recommend. We don't receive any compensation from any of the hosting companies we recommend. We just have ones that are favorites that we like to do work with. And I can, if you talk to me after, I can give you sort of a short list of ones that we think are worth the money. All right. Number 5, WordPress core and plugins. 98% of WordPress vulnerabilities come from outdated plugins. What's an outdated plugin? Well, because WordPress releases a new core version about once a month, and plugins may release a new version every couple of weeks, it might be a plugin that's 2 months old. So it's really a good idea to once a month, or at least once a quarter, go through and make sure all your plugins and your WordPress version is up to date. Let's see. So that's about the frequency. For certain high-level sites, you might do it more often. One of the things we do when we manage a WordPress site for someone is we do a compatibility check first to make sure that updating this plugin isn't going to break something with this version of WordPress core. I recommend checking that, those little notes that you see when it says before you update, check this out. I recommend that. And then do a complete end-to-end test of your website after you update, right? Don't just click update and go, okay, I'm good, because there is a chance that it will break something. Certain times you'll run into incompatibilities. So you want to do a front-to-end test, including testing your forms. If it's an e-commerce site, test making a purchase, that kind of thing. Use extra layers of security. We won't get into too much of this, but firewalls. There's a firewall called Security that I'll highly recommend. And somebody mentioned Cloudflare earlier. Cloudflare is a great thing. It's essentially a content delivery network that distributes the load of your server such that your server isn't just centrally located. It's serving your website from multiple locations throughout the country and throughout the world. So this is a much better way to go. WordFence is a plugin I highly recommend for WordPress users. You can configure this to add 100 times better security than without it. It serves as a little bit of a firewall. It can help you with brute force attacks. And if you just go on and search WordFence in the WordPress plugin directory, this is a really good plugin. It's got a free version, and there's a paid version that's even better. Tip 7, cyber insurance. So why do I recommend cyber insurance? Well, because there's always the weakest link. So no matter how good your firewalls and encryption and antivirus software is, you've got that one guy, right? So there's no match for all of that. There's always going to be the weakest link, and cyber insurance is going to help. Finally, last tip, hire a website development firm or a security firm. If you feel overwhelmed and you feel like you need some additional help, don't be afraid to reach out. It's a really good investment. And maybe you just need them to run a vulnerability scan on your site, find out if you have any major vulnerabilities, and fix some of the critical problems, and you just need a little help for a little while to manage it. But that's a really good investment of time. So final thought on websites. It's not a one-time task to keep your website secure. It's an ongoing task, and technology is always changing. So my recommendation is to, if you don't want to hire somebody to manage your site yourself, subscribe to the WordFence blog. WordFence actually has an amazing blog where every day they release some information on a new vulnerability that they've uncovered with specifically related to WordPress. So subscribe to their blog, get the updates. If getting those freaks you out and you go, oh my gosh, there's so much stuff out there that's scary, then seek maybe the help of a web development firm, a webmaster. A lot of people can do this, and you can do all of this WordPress security yourself. It's just, as you can tell, very time consuming. So that's sort of my final thought for now. Thank you. I'm going to bring Ben up now. I'm going to just make a quick announcement here. I am going to do a extended workshop. If you kind of feel like, okay, this was a fire hose, I can't take all this in right now. I'm going to do a 90-minute workshop. We can go a little slower on some of these topics and do a deep dive on WordPress management and website management. So I have a sign-up sheet up here at the front. Feel free to sign up for that. And if we get 5 or 10 people that want to do that, we'll schedule something in April. So let me introduce Ben. And by the way, we'll do a little short Q&A with Ben and I at the end. So if you have more questions for me, we can definitely do that. Let me stop sharing here, Ben, so you can. So Ben is the compliance manager for Wasatch IT, and he takes the complicated regulatory frameworks and implements the technical controls, policies, and procedures for organizations so they can get back to their business. Ben blends in-depth technical competence with implementation expertise. And by the way, Ben is a Bobcat. He is a proud graduate of Montana State University. Any other Montana State people here, or Montana people? Okay. Welcome, Ben. Clap, everybody.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate that. Is anyone from Montana? No? What a warm welcome, even though you're not from Montana. That's okay. All right, there will be a quiz. There will be a little judgment if you haven't been paying attention. But yeah, Wasatch IT, if you're not familiar with us, we're the largest independently owned managed service provider in Utah. And so we are your IT team if you need an IT team. If you want a kind of a hybrid, you have one person, but you need outside help to spin up new locations or businesses. If you need tech support, cybersecurity, compliance, or just consulting that area, we want to assist and help. And like Doug said, my fortuitous life has brought me to an expert, I suppose you could say, in compliance-related matters. So if it's PCI, or NIST cybersecurity framework, or HIPAA, or anything that you need regulatory, give me a call. We'll cry about it together, okay? Today we're talking about how to protect your organization from a cyber attack. Make sure it's good. All right, this is why you should care and why you should pay attention to my presentation, because you're going to get text like this. You maybe already have today. you've gotten a call perhaps talking about your extended warranty on your car or something of that nature. It kind of looks like your bank, it smells like your bank, but it's not your bank, right? So we all need to be aware as individuals about cyber attacks, but of course that goes doubly or triply for our businesses. This is just a smattering of some articles. Just to illustrate the point, it doesn't matter. You're not safe on Apple, you're not safe on Linux, you're not safe on Windows, or even on your Xbox. And it also doesn't matter the age of the attacker. It could be a 5-year-old that finds a vulnerability or a 95-year-old. So we need to all be paying attention. Just because you use one vendor, no matter how great they are, there's always going to be vulnerabilities. We all have to take responsibility for our own cyber efforts. Let's see if you're paying attention. What's the weakest link in your organization's cyber security? Say it with me one more time. It's people. That's right.
Come on, Dave.
That's right, Dave. Now, this is how you prepare your people. These are some of the things that we recommend you do. And again, I could talk a lot more about cybersecurity frameworks, risk management, change management, all that sort of stuff. But that's for the advanced seminar, okay? We're just doing the basics here. So I'd recommend you get cybersecurity frameworks like the SANS templates or the NIST cybersecurity framework to use that as a blueprint for developing your cybersecurity policy. Make sure your new hires are instantly trained and up to speed on your cybersecurity policy and actually have one. And then don't make sure it's not just sitting on a shelf in a filing cabinet somewhere updated 7 years ago, right? You need to make sure it's retrained and certified annually. And then, of course, you need to have a policy for what happens in the unfortunate event if somebody leaves your company, like Doug was saying. You need to have a termination policy as well. So test your people. That's my little preface today. We're going to go through the who and why of cyber attacks. We're going to talk about phishing. We're going to talk about spoofing, ransomware, social engineering, social media, and we'll land the plane with some best practices. Does that sound like a plan?
Yes.
Thank you. That was enthusiastic. Who are cyber criminals? Well, it could be your stereotypical hacker sitting in their basement in a hoodie with a dark room and green text floating around, and they're just typing away. But it could just be somebody that has made the calculated financial decision that it's better to be in cybercrime. Of course, we've seen in our geopolitical climate right now that it's not just individuals, it's groups, cartels of cyber criminals, plus nation-state sponsored actors. And sometimes it's just desperate people that know it's an easier way to get a quicker buck to take advantage of your lacks in security. Why do people do it? Of course, just to watch the world burn, some people. Some it's just it's activism. Financial gain is it's just pure calculus or survival and just perhaps political motives. So we need to be aware from all angles and all types of people might be cyber criminals. Now we're going to talk about a few different vectors. Phishing with a PH like this is not anything related to a band. It's when you are being the fish. You're being fished. Phishing attacks, if we're getting technical, that's when somebody is trying to impersonate an entity or a person to try to get you to reveal confidential information or compromise your security, right? And everyone's been hit. I almost don't even need to tell you that you probably, like I said, might have even received a text of how you can shred 47 pounds really quickly today. But it's all around us. We need to be aware. This is the exact email that John Podesta received that caused the Clinton campaign to be hacked. You'll notice that someone has your password, John, and they tried to log in from Ukraine. Whoever, they must really not like Ukraine, these Russians, for some reason. But Google stopped this, of course, in quotes, right? This wasn't Google. Please change your password immediately, and here's a link. You'll notice at the bottom of this, the change password link is a bit.ly link. It's a link shortening app. So it disguises the link. So be careful if you see something like that just says bit.ly or some other type link shortener. And John went to his email team or his IT team, and they said, yeah, you probably should change your password. But they didn't explicitly enough tell him to change it through going to his user profile and changing his password that way. And so he clicked the link, and that's how the Clinton campaign was hacked. Let's look at some more examples. More local. University of Utah Health had some patient data compromised in a phishing security breach 2 years ago. We had a small business CEO, unnamed, of course, that received wiring instructions from his vendor and wired money, but it was too little too late till he realized that was a spear phishing attack, and that money was now on its way overseas. So it can happen on every different level, and you know this. So let's look at some examples to up our cybersecurity IQ. These are just examples of phishing emails that show us it could look like a legitimate Microsoft or Google login screen. If we look on the one on the right specifically, and I know it's hard to see perhaps, but that's the point. It's hard to see on your screen as well when you see it. So we need to get our little readers out, okay? If we notice on the email on the right, it's from postmaster at us.ibm.com. Now, I would stop myself and I'd say, why would IBM be emailing me about my Microsoft email, right? That'd be my first clue. So that's my first little tip. Always look at who is sending the message. And you can hover over or click on that header, and that's safe, that's fine. It will reveal, maybe postmaster was all it said, and you click on that or hover over it, and then it shows the actual email. So look at the actual email there. 2, I hover over the send again button, and I see it's not taking me to office.com or outlook.com or anything like that. It's taking me to spapparelsindia.in, which perhaps I do business in India, but for this context, I can say that's probably fake, right? Makes sense, thank you. Always do the SLAM method: subject, links, attachments, and message. Always observe the subject, links, attachments, and the message of your email. And if it smells like a fish, don't bite. Here's some other examples. Sometimes it's really specific, like the one on the right here. It's a wire transfer instructions, and they purchased a domain that was so similar to that realtor's domain, and it looked like the realtor. It had a very similar signature in the bottom, and click here, just to go to the domain, but the domain is off by one letter. So it's not the realtor's domain, it's just like a website that's made to look like the realtor's domain, like Doug was talking about. And then that's how you can get caught in wire fraud right around that transaction time. So be extra careful, as they say, around buying and selling homes. But sometimes it's more general. It's just your HR department or your IT team. And they're just hoping that you don't know the actual name of your HR department head or something, that you don't know your IT team, and that they'll just catch you off guard or one of your employees off guard. So watch out for hyper-specific ones and watch out for general ones. Maybe you should watch out for every email you get, actually. That's the real winner. A couple things they'll do. They'll try to look and sound like your CEO. They'll send you an urgent request, or your employees an urgent request saying, I need those W-2s, or Acme won't pay us on time if we don't get this going, right? It's urgent. And I'm in a meeting and you can't call me, by the way. And then the one is deconstructed on the bottom. It just shows that there's often suspicious language, inconsistent behavior or grammar, and then the subject, of course, remember SLAM. It's urgent, quickly. You need to act and not think. Spear phishing is a subtype of phishing where you are specifically being targeted, right? Where perhaps, unfortunately, one tactic we see is if you're not paying attention, you'll give over your credentials, and someone will log into your email and create some rules inside your Outlook or your Gmail, and they will send pretty much all of your emails. There's different strategies. One, they could just log in and watch you and watch your emails to craft a message that looks like your best vendor coming up. 2, they can send or forward all those emails that you get to their email box. That's another way. Or they can do a little crafty things like if there's anything from the IT team or that says spam or you got hacked, they'll say, if any rules, any emails that come in with that subject line, delete those emails. So you might be compromised. Your IT team is trying to tell you you're compromised, but they've already created rules to make sure those emails don't get to you. So periodically, check your email rules or talk to your IT team to do that to make sure there's nothing nefarious going on. That'd be one thing to look for. So spear phishing is when you're attacked. And whaling is when you are attacked and you're a big target. You're the CEO, you're the CFO, and if you're compromised or you think the CEO is telling you to wire your vendor, it's much more damaging to your business. So watch out if you're a whale, and watch out if you're being spearfished. We're going to do Q&As at the end of each section just briefly, but there will be a Q&A at the end, like Doug said. So let's talk about the phishing cousins, vishing and smishing. Yes, it's true. That's what they're really called. Vishing is voice-based phishing, and smishing is SMS or text-based smishing. Again, you might get texts like this. The IRS is suing you, right? Well, how helpful that you got a random text about that. Or perhaps it's FedEx, that your package is held up and you need to click on this. Don't click on any links in your texts if you don't know the number and you're not expecting something. Especially because of COVID the last couple of years, there's a rise in voice-based scams. And here's the truth. We're just humans, so when we hear another live human on the line, we're more likely to believe them. So be extra careful when there's somebody that's calling you saying, hey, I'm from your bank. There's some fraud on your account. I had a friend in IT, really smart guy. He was hacked that way. He just thought his bank was being super helpful. He looked up the number. We'll talk about it in a second. They can spoof the number to make it look like it's coming from your bank. And then he just thought someone was being super helpful, but they were like, oh, let me send you a code, to verify it's you. And sometimes they do that legitimately. But what he realized too late is that they were trying to log into his account, and his real bank was sending him real 2FA codes to his phone, and he was accidentally giving the actual codes to the attackers on the line. So you gotta be really careful. If anyone, basically just think, why would anyone try to help me and call me? You know what I mean? And then you hang up. And if you have any real concern about your bank, you log in on your phone or through a known good way, and then you verify if there's actually fraud, if you actually see that. Cool? I got on a tangent about the bank, but also watch out for if Apple or a big company is calling you. A lot of times, again, why would they call you? To go out of their way to tell you that something small like this has happened. It's often an attacker trying to be really, really friendly. And they can spoof those caller ID numbers, so even if it says Apple or your bank, still have your guard up, okay? And then also watch out if it's just a generic, this is your IT team, calling. If you were calling us, I'd say, hey, feel free to call, hang up and call us at our known good number. You know what I mean? We're not going to be offended like that. So watch out for vishing and smishing. Now let's talk about spoofing. We've touched on this a little bit. Spoofing is to parody or to forge something. That's where they've altered an email or a caller ID or a website to make you think it looks like the legitimate place. Which one is real? Wild guess. I'm seeing some people on the right, some people on the left. Seeing both. I will refer. It's the one on the left. I'll just say that. And if you're paying attention with Doug's, again, it's small, so I don't blame you if you can't see it. But again, that's the point: is URLs are small. So if I look at the URL, the one on the left has LinkedIn.com at the left, and it's bolded, so I know that in the address bar, that's the top level domain, and that's the legitimate one. Plus, I see that padlock. I know it's HTTPS, and that SSL cert is there. And I look on the one on the right, and it ends in go.id as the top level domain. That doesn't seem correct. But you have to be watching out and careful, because if you notice in the rest of that text, in the lighter gray text, it says linkedin.com there. So don't just look and quickly scan the URL and say, oh, yeah, I see Microsoft or LinkedIn in there. You have to make sure it's the top level domain. It's actually where you're going to. It's the bolded email or URL, excuse me. Here's another example where I've made it obvious for us. We go to this place. I've just clicked a phishing email. It looks like Microsoft's login page, but it's agionis.com and it's not secure. So I get out of here. Again, notice in the URL, it has #john@doe.com, which they're using, their web development skills to auto-populate your email in the main field right there. So just because it says John at Doe, your email in the middle of the page, still doesn't mean that it's legitimately Microsoft's website. Okay, this is a breakdown. Let's say this is your real website domain, abccompanyyinc.com. A cyber attacker can take and make a legitimate website with the domain abccompanylink.com, but the lowercase l in some fonts looks like the uppercase I due to our sans serif font here. Then they create john.smith at abccompanylink.com, and they email your finance team to send wire instructions. I'm the CEO, John Smith. Please send the wire instructions immediately. I'm in a meeting. So if your IT team or your people aren't trained, or they don't have like an automatic message saying, hey, this is not actually from our domain, this is coming from outside the house, then they might be fooled by such a communication. If you just look at these really quickly, your brain auto-corrects them. But if you notice a little bit, you take a moment, you'll notice there's some misspellings. There's a Q in mortgage, and then there's that L instead of the I, capital. Your brain is an amazing machine, but sometimes it works against us, and cyber attackers know how to use our tendencies against us. So always question. Nothing is real. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. My associate Matt is here. My associate Nika is up there. If you have any questions about IT stuff, we'd be happy to talk to you today. I'm also do we have a pin? Perfect. The pin might not be very good. We're gonna pass out an advanced cybersecurity for the small, medium-sized business workshop that we're doing, an interest form, a complimentary workshop. We're gonna talk about risk management at a deeper level. We're gonna talk about these cybersecurity frameworks and how to establish one. We're going to talk about some advanced things like vulnerability scanning and penetration testing. So if you're interested, sign up. Thank you so much, Matt. You can pass that around, and we'll have it up at the top if you don't get a sign up by the time we're done. All right, let's talk about ransomware. Ransomware is kind of the new kid on the block, but we need to be a little bit more explicit here about what it is. If you haven't heard about it, ransomware, what it does is it encrypts the files and folders on your device, and then there's a key that needs to be entered to unlock it. And then they hold that key for ransom and say, you need to give us Bitcoin or something of that nature in order to retrieve your files. What's particularly nasty about this is they'll often exfiltrate your data at the same time. And so even if you have good backups and restored all your data, they still might hold you hostage and say, well, we're going to release that data if you don't pay us. Everyone's been hit by ransomware. Just because you're a small business, don't think that you are immune to that. Small businesses have been hit and knocking offline for 2 weeks at a time, but it even affects nation states, even our own government. Speaking of having great backups, the U of U had to pay almost $500,000 because they just had a phishing email coming to like the psychology department. They clicked on it, it got compromised, it spread, data was exfiltrated, and even though they have a great IT team up there, they still paid the ransom in order to not have that data released. So watch out. More local impact. You might have seen last year, people had to fill up their Tupperware containers with gasoline in the Southeast because that whole Colonial Pipeline was shut down. And again, that was because of a phishing attempt. JBS, the world's largest meat supplier, was taken down last year as well. More locally, Premier Family Medical had patient records impacted, and Garfield County was knocked offline for 2 weeks. So it happens here. And the thing that's scary about it too is that they know your infrastructure. If they've compromised you, they know your finances, right? They have it. And so you might get a lawyer on the phone saying, oh, we're a small business. And they're like, I have your reports right here. I know exactly how much you can pay. And so you can't negotiate with these people. How does ransomware get in? It could just be a simple PDF. You gotta watch out for it. There's, again, the SLAM method: subject, links, attachments, message. If any of those things look suspicious, or you're like, why is this some random PDF or random remittance or invoice being sent? I wasn't expecting it. Be careful. Could be a voicemail message, even if it's the wrong file type. Watch out for that. This one is really an increasing because a lot of us use cloud services, Google Drive, Dropbox, iCloud, etc. And they will use those legitimate services to have their malware or ransomware hosted. And then they just send you a link like this. Hey, please review this. Or they'll say something like threatening, like, I'm a photographer and I've seen that you have my intellectual property on your website. Look, I have the evidence right here. Please click on this to see, review, or else I will sue you. And you don't want to be sued, so you click on the link really quickly. And then if you're not paying attention, you'll download and install ransomware or something like that on your environment. So again, if you're not expecting a random link to a file, don't click on it. Here's a little GIF for you. I'll let it run a couple times. We'll talk about this in a moment, but they'll use social engineering attacks against you. They know our psychology. And, oh, your salary's been reduced. Well, oh my goodness, I better click on this really quickly. And then, oh, it's saying I have to enable editing and then enable content. Okay, I better click on this to view the file. And you're not thinking. And so what happens here is they put in some macros into these files, and then a script is generated, and then it calls back to the internet and downloads the malware. And that's what those banners are meant to protect you. So don't ever click enable editing or enable content unless you 100% know where this file is from. And finally, like I mentioned before, they will do anything to take advantage of our human desire to know where our packages are. I just want my packages, whatever it is. It's just like opening Christmas presents, right? So if you know you have packages coming, maybe don't click on any email links just in case. Or again, alternatively, if you didn't think you had a package coming, don't click a link. Look in your app or through your logged in tab on Amazon or whatever to make sure that it's actually legitimate. Finally, this kind of is new and scary. Sometimes your own team is emailed and they will, cyber attackers will say, hey, we'll give you a cut if you infect your own system. And of course, there's no guarantee that they will ever pay, but that's something where we need really good cybersecurity policy. We need to have a good, healthy company cultures. We need to have trust built so that we can learn how to recognize and manage insider threat as well. Okay, we're doing great. A lot of cheery subjects today. Continuing, we're going to talk about social engineering. Social engineering is just using human behavior, psychology, sociology against us, trying to manipulate you and create a desired outcome. And it's often used in conjunction with these attacks and these technical support techniques to appear completely flawless. Here's some examples. The quote-unquote CEO that emails you, I need this done now, or no one's going to get paid. They're using authority and intimidation to scare you. They might use consensus or social proof. So, hey, your coworker Ben did this for me just last week. What's the big deal? I just need access to this. Nobody's ever asked me to stop before. They use scarcity or urgency. Things like, no one's going to get paid. If we don't get this payroll process, I need you to do X, Y, Z. Familiarity or liking or flattery. Hey, how about them, Jazz? Doing great. That was a great game last night. Oh, I know we haven't met, but I'm your new coworker and you're just doing me such a big favor. I just forgot my VPN password and I need a project done, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you'd be my hero if you just give me this, right? And then you're amazing. I'm so dumb. I don't know technology. Can you please help me? So beware if any of those emotions rise in you when you're reading an email and you want to click right away, second guess. Take a moment and cool off. This will be what happens sometimes. Let's say you've paid attention so far. You're like, all right, Ben was okay, Doug was okay. Got a good meal. Then you go home and then you're at your company, a computer, and then you get an email and you're like, I should not click on this suspicious link. Great. But what happens is an attacker calls in to your office, calls you and says, hey, I'm your biggest vendor. Can you please check that link out? You'd really be helping me out. And you, being a nice, normal human being, are like, well, this must be legitimate then. And you click on it, you download it, you do whatever they say because you trust people on the phone. And then malware's it could be, could be legitimate, and it happens. But also we need to be on guard for these kind of social engineering strategies. Social media. Are you guys on social media? Okay. One of you and plus some nods. I will proceed with my slides. So social media scams are rampant. You've seen those emails or messages from your friends. Hey, my account got hacked. So let's talk about it. Social media scams could be using messaging apps, it could be using the big sites, and it could be leveraging your friends and your colleagues both legitimately and fake versions of them to attack you. They also take advantage of you being off the clock. You kind of assume, I don't need to worry about this. It's not in my company email. It could be a friend that adds you again on Facebook that is just actually a cyber attacker, but they're pretending to be your friend. Could be the friend who shares a link with no context, no description of what that link is, or perhaps a really sensational description, like, you gotta check this out. Perhaps it's news articles that are just too good to be true, both for your adversaries politically or your team, your tribe. If it's designed to inflame you, watch out. We've seen, how many people have you seen send money to a friend overseas or a new romantic partner, and you're like, why did you do that? But it was a romance that just blossomed over several months, but it was pretty sudden. So watch out. Could be a contest or a giveaway. And it could be, this is a pet peeve of mine, it could be just one of those innocent polls on Facebook or something of that nature that says, remember your street that you grew up on? Why don't you share that? Like, what? Isn't this fun? And then there's all these things out there, and then what you don't realize you're doing is you're giving away the most common security questions to reset your passwords. And so all of a sudden, the cyber attackers have these lists of thousands of people that have just given their mother maiden name or anything like that. And it's all because it's fun, but they can, again, people use fun and things maliciously against us. A few more examples. Again, you're rushing to figure out, what is this me in this photo? I don't know. I better click. This is probably embarrassing, or I better click on it. Don't click on that. Maybe Emily here is messaging you, hey, oh my gosh, I'm stuck in Paris. I need you to send me some money to get me out of here. My wallet was stolen. Also notice there might be grammar issues, or perhaps Emily's profile recently started talking a lot about giveaways and iPhones or something like that, or just a stock photo about the Eiffel Tower. So kind of watch out. There's another thing you gotta be careful for. Just in the sense of fun, people will say, oh, who view your profile? Just install this app on Facebook, it's fine. But those apps often ask for a ridiculous amount of information on your profile. And if you're not paying attention, you've just given a random app. If you store all this information on Facebook and you install an app and you don't pay attention to those permissions, you maybe have given out your email, your phone number, your address, date of birth, enough information to definitely put you in a compromised position. Okay, let's land the plane. I know some of you guys have to leave. Thanks for your patience. Best practices. My number one goal would be reward suspicion. Don't be the employer or the small business owner that makes it a crime or a faux pas or yells at people to bring up anything like, hey, did you really want me to go buy gift cards for all the employees at Best Buy? I just wanted to double check. Don't be the owner that's like, no, of course I told you to do that. Don't question me again. Then you are rewarding cyber criminals that want to take advantage of your people. Some of these are overlap with Doug, right? So we'll see if you're paying attention. 81% of data breaches are due to a weak, stolen, or default password, and 60% of people use the same password for everything, and I get it. You just wanted to download the new Wendy's app to order your fries, and they make you sign up for a profile. I don't want to make another profile out there, but I have to, so I might as well use my same email and my same password that I use for everything, right? No, wrong. I shouldn't do that. That's what I'm tempted to do. I got you. Yeah. Again, they know the most common 20,000, 10,000, 100,000 passwords out there. So don't use something really common, use something really strong and unique. My two main takeaways, echoing Doug here, if you were to do anything for your security today for free, sign up for a password manager. There's free versions. There's also corporate versions too. If you need a corporate recommendation, ask us, we can give you a recommendation. And then sign up for any multi-factor authentication you can for any account you have, both personal and professional. A lot of people ask, well, what about isn't it weak to have one strong primary password? And what if the password manager is hacked? Without getting into too much detail, because I'm trying to honor your time here, there's always a risk of someone else being hacked. But I'd rather, due to their strong security measures and how they handle and encrypt those passwords and salt and hash them on their end, and that the fact that they don't transmit those passwords to me, they're decrypted on my device. Again, I try not to be technical, but I'm sorry. But just because of the way they're architected, they're less likely to be leveraged against you than a Post-it note or an Excel file that's in the clear that you're storing, right? And use that, especially that master password, that primary password, use a strong and unique one for that. Final tips, work from home best practices. If you have an IT team and they have remote monitoring and antivirus software, make sure they have that on your computer. Like Doug said, don't share Wi-Fi with people you don't know. Don't go to coffee shop to do your personal or your important business. It's probably fine for web surfing. Encrypt your devices if you can. Talk to your IT team about that. If you have mobile device management, make sure you're using that. Only allow appropriate company-owned devices or bring your own device compliant devices. And lock your computer when you're not away from it, and only share it don't share it, I guess is what I'm saying, because the most malware I've ever seen is people that have shared their computer with their kids. And kids are targeted too. They think that they're signing up for free V-Bucks or something, but they're actually giving you some malware as a present. Be careful what you print, especially if you're sharing printers in a public space, in a co-working space. And as much as you can, keep your work and your personal life separate, because the more you interlace them, doing personal business on work email, then the more risk surface that you have, and the more risk you're introducing into your business and your business into your personal life. That's my presentation. If you need anything in IT, compliance, tech support, cybersecurity, let us know. Nika, Matt, or me are here. Thanks for your time.
Thanks very much, Ben. We're running a little bit short of time, so I think what we'd like to do, if you've got some particular questions for Ben or Doug, feel free to come down and speak with them, but I think we're going to wrap things up for right now. If you are interested in doing a tour with Victoria of this beautiful facility, it's really cool.
Raise your hand if you want to do the tour. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Okay. Well, super. And I was just going to mention one thing. I know of 2 law firms in town, large law firms, that have had ransomware attacks in the last couple of years. You do not want to go through that. And I think one of the big things that you should be aware of, you can get cyber liability insurance that covers a lot of what these gentlemen talked about, and it can cover other types of data problems in your business. So if you do not have cyber liability insurance, or if you don't know if you have it, talk to your insurance agent and get that figured out. And I would get it figured out sooner than later before something happens. So that's my tip. So Anyway, well, thank you very much. This has been a great event, and Gary's got one more
And
thing.
Just to echo this, thanks so much for coming. Continue to watch for our information. There will be something in late April, and you'll be getting information from our team of Wasatch Business Series folks. So this scares the hell out of me. How about you guys? I had one of these, an FBI agent presented one about 5 years ago. Oh my God. Yeah, we do need to make sure we have our ducks lined up, don't we? So thanks. And Victoria, Heidi. So meet down here with Victoria and myself, and we'll do that brief tour. And if you do have questions for Ben and Doug and others, come on up. So that's it. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.